Hey there, I'm Eliza.
And I'm Dave.
And we're with Ancestral Evolution, where we talk about solving modern problems with ancestral solutions. First sat down to try to do research for this video. We wanted to talk a little bit about the scientific research linking glyphosate with gluten and sort of the health problems that are related to gluten that a lot of people experience. A quiet bombshell was dropped in the midst of that research. So we'll be talking about that in a little bit. Why are all these people having problems with gluten? Because
it's so
gluten's
common.
been around, right, for a long time. And then you hear these stories of my aunt went to Italy or my sister went to France and she could eat all the pastries she wanted and all the pasta and all the pizza while they were in Europe, but they come back to the US, or all those same things in the US make them very, very sick.
Yeah, and to that point, we just not too long ago tried an experiment and started buying flour that's like grown and processed in Italy. And sure enough, I can eat all of it I want and it is zero issues. I have no problems with it.
Yeah. Not that it's ideal to be like eating tons of it.
And I'm not eating tons of it.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, but I can, like, we've made homemade pizzas. We've done stuff that I've not had in years and years because I couldn't do it because it would have made me sick. And I can do it now and it's not an issue.
Right. There are a couple hypotheses as to why people can eat all these things in Europe but can't in the US.
One of the major theories, which certainly has merit, is that in the 1950s, they hybridized the wheat plant. And that essentially meant that it produces more, it has a better yield, and it's a little bit of a hardier plant, but it is not as easily digestible. Also, there is more gluten in the hybridized wheat plant.
Another hypothesis is that in Europe, a lot of these flours, are milled at a much lower temperature and are treated a little bit more carefully. There's a lot more things like sourdough and other processes which are a little bit slower and may contribute to degradation of some of these gluten proteins. And then the third hypothesis is the difference in glyphosate usage between Europe and Italy and in the US.
And that's what we're going to focus on today, because the more we've researched this, it really seems like it's the glyphosate.
So glyphosate was originally approved in 1974 as an herbicide. In 2010, Monsanto, now Bayer, got a patent on glyphosate for its antimicrobial action. Glyphosate is known to inhibit this metabolic pathway called the shikimate or shikimate pathway. And this pathway exists in plants, it exists in bacteria, fungi, algae, but it is not in animals. So it was thought, okay, so animals don't have this, so it'll be just fine for people and animals to be exposed to. But they knew that it kills bacteria. Then a study came out in 2023, and this study was really important because it's experimental. So these people were giving mice doses of glyphosate, and they were looking at their microbiome. When the mice were given doses of glyphosate, which are equivalent to the allowable daily intake for humans, those mice had significant changes in their microbiome. The mice that were treated with glyphosate had significantly lower levels of lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. Now, incidentally, these two types of bacteria are also really important for the breakdown of gluten. Now, we have a pretty clear theoretical mechanism for why glyphosate ingestion might produce an inability to digest gluten well.
Suffice to say that obviously
it's a problem.
Everybody these days just about knows someone that has a gluten intolerance and or celiac, which is sort of the worst version of it, let's say. And lo and behold, this totally correlates, and it might not just me, but everyone, with the glyphosate usage in wheat and how they use glyphosate to essentially like dry out the wheat. It's not used, there's no GMO wheat. It's not used.
There's no Roundup Ready wheat.
Yeah, it's anywhere that exists in the world. They've never made it.
Commercialized.
Right. It's only used to clear fields in between plantings to kill everything in the fields. And and the worst part is, at least in America, they spray it directly on the wheat right before it goes to harvest to essentially as a preservative to dry it out.
I mean, there is sort of speculation about how widespread the use as a desiccant is, but there's no labeling to know. You just really have people's word, but you have no idea whether the wheat you're getting has been sprayed to desiccate it or not.
And pretty much in the U.S. it is done, because there's, from a purely economical point of view, why would you not do this? If you can even stop 10% loss, I mean, that's a huge number.
What is the incentive not to do it?
That's what I mean. And it's not illegal, and there's no,
it's considered off-label use, but I don't think there's anything...
There's no legal...
like repercussions or anything else that affects those people who choose to do that. And I would just side note that this is not just done with wheat. It's done routinely with things like, I think chickpeas are like one of the worst ones. Yeah. Like all those like dried legumes and beans.
Barley, if you drink beer of any kind, even if it's really good craft beer, beer actually was one of the highest products that people consume that is tested that has glyphosate. It has the highest levels of glyphosate of almost anything. And it didn't matter if it was like it or if it was like really good craft beer, pretty much across the board. It is full of it.
So unless something is labeled organic, which we'll get to that in a minute, the organic label means that they cannot use glyphosate in the fields or as a desiccant. However, because the United States uses such a large amount of glyphosate, it's like 280 million pounds, I think, in like 2023 is what I saw. It's a huge amount. It gets everywhere. Like the water is contaminated, the soil is contaminated, it is spread sometimes through the air, and these compounds don't necessarily break down that fast. Organic products in the U.S. have been tested for glyphosate, and they've been found to be in many organic products. Now, the levels of glyphosate in those organic products are much lower, so it is definitely a better choice. And that gets us back to the Italy question, right? So Roundup or glyphosate is not technically banned in Italy. They're allowed to use it for clearing the fields before wheat propagation, but it has been banned, I think, since 2019 as a dessicant in Italy.
They cannot spray it directly on the crops, which again is what they're doing.
Which is like the huge...
in the U.S. and most other countries, in fact, they're just spraying it directly on there.
I was also just going to say that in Italy, they also have a ban on using glyphosate for things like parks and personal...
You can't buy it at Home Depot and go spray in the yard.
And go spray stuff.
We have neighbors that do this, which always hurts my soul a little bit.
But all these people are doing it because they have been told that glyphosate is safe.
Right.
Which brings me to the quiet bombshell. About a week and a half ago, there was a paper which was quietly retracted by the journal which originally published it. This paper was the sort of landmark safety study on glyphosate. It came out in court documents back in 2017, I think it was, that Monsanto basically had been ghostwriting papers. So that means Monsanto basically wrote this paper and then gave it to the scientists to sign off on. And it wasn't acknowledged that way at all. And then a kind of a more thorough investigation of this situation was published in September of this year, and I will link to that paper below because I think it would be very interesting for all y'all to look at it and see what you think. After that, the authors of that paper put in a formal retraction request, I guess, to the original journal, and they finally pulled it. It is one of the most cited studies on glyphosate across the board.
So it's fraudulent.
Yes, so it's very influential. All like the Wikipedia articles cite this paper. All of policy and governmental people have cited this paper. Like I said, the scientific citations alone are almost 700 or over 700. This is not a small deal. This is a huge deal. And it's kind of been glossed over. No one's really talking about it that much, but they should be because this is a huge deal.
Yeah, and of course, there's billions of dollars on the line with this stuff.
Of course, yes.
This is a massive industry, obviously.
Roundup's the most popular.
Yeah, and it's used, and like we said, in all kinds of things, all the GMO crops, and obviously the wheat and all the things we talked about. But it's this is a multi-billions and billions, probably hundreds of billions of dollars, and that's just in the U.S. And then you look at this worldwide, and who knows what that number is. But it's a crazy amount of money. So if you think, well, but they would tell me if it was bad, no, they wouldn't. And you should do more research on lots of things like this.
Follow the money.
Yeah, follow the money. Because the money will lead you to the answer if you can find it and it's not buried.
So if you are looking for some clean personal care products look no further. We make a line of tallow-based soap and shampoo and deodorant, tallow balm, lip balm.
Toothpaste.
Yeah, that doesn't have tallow in it, but
Yeah.
I guess we could. Anyway, they're all tallow-based. This is our shampoo bar, which I'm very proud of. It has a little bee on it, which is very cute. But it is one of the most natural shampoo bars on the market that you're going to find. So check it out at ancestralevolution.net. Try it out. See what you think. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks.